Hello everyone, this is Andy from the Pixel Pub, and I'm here to talk about my top 10 games of 1988. Okay, to start off right here, right off the bat, I did a bit of research trying to find out, games that actually came out in 1988. Mostly here in America, not Japanese release dates. And I didn't even go down the rabbit hole of arcade games released in 1988. I tried to keep it something that I could manage. And if I got any of these dates wrong, or if these games came out in a different year, just let me know. I didn't just pull these out of my ass. I actually, looked things up and tried to verify and, did my research. So, with that being said, let's start at number 10. All right, number 10 is not a game I particularly like that much, but when I looked at what was available for me to pick from, it's one of the top 10 games of 1988. And that is Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link. I really love the Zelda series, and I actually played a ton of this game as a child. My cousin at the time let me borrow it for a very long time because he was old. But I remember playing it and beating the first dungeon, going to all the other dungeons, just collecting the items and not beating the bosses, and that was my Zelda 2 experience. And I was like, it's hard to go back to. It's hard to recommend this game to anybody. If you were there, you were there. If you know, you know. This is number 10 of 1988. All right, number 9 is a game that I only played fairly recently in my life because we picked it up on one of our mini retro game hauls over the past couple years. That is Karnov from Data East, based off an arcade game, I believe. Yes, arcade hit, it says right there. It is a fun little action game platformer where you play this, balding Turkish man with a mustache, and you shoot fire out of your mouth to fight other enemies. I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about Karnov other than I like it better than Zelda 2. Okay, number 8 is another game based off an arcade game. That is Bobble from Taito. The most you can say about this game is that the song that plays throughout the entire fucking game will be an earworm for you for the rest of your life if you played it a lot. And the game never ends, basically. I mean, it's got like 100 and something stages. Like, who the fuck ever beat Bobble in the NES? There can't be that many people who did it for fun. But it's fine. I'm acting like it's bad. It's fine. It's just long. That's why it's number 8. Okay, number 7. It's also a home release of a arcade port, which there were a lot of at that time. That's Gun.Smoke, which was originally owned by Chris Burney. I need to get some alcohol on that. Get some alcohol on that and clean that name off. But anyway, Gun.Smoke. It's called that, legend has it, because they didn't want to get sued by the people on the show Gun.Smoke. So they put a little dot in there. Hopefully it would help them in their litigious life. But I guess it worked because I never heard about whoever owns that fucking TV show suing Capcom. But yeah, this is a fun little top-down cowboy game. It's mostly just a kind of a vertical shooter where you're a cowboy. You're running through town and shoot dudes. And it's very simple, but I mean, what else could you expect from the time? All right, number 6 is another game that maybe it technically isn't great, maybe technically doesn't hold up, but I fucking loved it when I first played it, which was a little bit after the NES era. That is Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. Now, you talk about a game that was made to sell strategy guides or quell off the burgeoning rental market that Nintendo fucking hated. This game was right up your alley because who knew you could just duck in front of this cliff and a tornado would carry you to the next part that you need to go to. I never made it that far in my playthroughs at the time because it was kind of the pre-internet. I just knew I wanted to play Castlevania 2. I actually had the, as a child for Christmas, I remember begging for the wristwatch Tiger Electronics Castlevania 2 game. Not this, but a little LCD thing you played on your fucking wrist. And I got it, and somehow that led me to my kind of mini obsession as a child with Castlevania 2. So I got it, and I played a lot of it, never really made any progress, but it still holds a special nostalgic place in my heart. That's why it's number 6. Okay, number 5. We're getting to some genuine fun games here. It's also a arcade port to the home market on the NES. That is Jackal from Konami. Now this is a fun ass game where you're fucking in a Jeep going into a war zone, just shooting people, rescuing people, shooting walls, shooting dudes, shooting tanks. It's great. It's fucking all out action. It's very short. You can complete it in like 30 minutes. But man, it works. The music's great. The art's great. It just, Jackal works. Jackal's thumbs up, number 5. All right, number 4 is the first and only non-NES game. And that is Fantasy Zone on the TurboGrafx 16. Now, I didn't have a TurboGrafx growing up. I remember seeing it in store kiosks and maybe commercials on television, but it was really just it might as well have been a foreign country that I didn't know about. Like, I didn't really keep up with it, but we got the TurboGrafx, and it's one of the games we picked up. Kathy really liked it. I really liked it. It's a fun little shoot 'em up is what they call it, where you're a little ship. Opa? Oh, yeah, sure. I think that's what the ship's called. And you're flying. It's a horizontal shooter. But unlike other ones where you have a start point and end point, this one, the stage kind of circulates and you have to defeat like an enemy nest or a boss or whatever to move on. And it's a fun little time. Fantasy Zone's great. All right, number 3 is a game I played a ton at. I never owned at the time, but I played a ton at family's houses, cousins, friends' houses, birthday parties you would go to. People always had this game. I never did, but it's RC Pro-Am. It is a isometric kind of top-down racer where you play little RC cars and you're going around tracks. And I think, for me, for my money, it is my first favorite racing game. Like, this is when it was actually fun. Like, I remember other people had like Days of Thunder and some other stuff that was bad. This was actually stupid fun. One of the first games I ever played by Rare, which would be a part of my life for like the next, I guess, until now. Last Rare game I played. Sea of Thieves. Yeah, there you go. But you see on the back here, it's got another name I need to get rid of, but I paid $2 for it. That's a steal for RC Pro-Am. RC Pro-Am is worth more than $2. It's worth the number 3 slot on this list. All right, number 2, we're getting to some big ones here. I believe is another port of an arcade game, but I've only ever played it on the NES, and that is Life Force from Konami. What a fucking badass shooter. I think this game right here is why I prefer the horizontal shooters to the vertical ones. The horizontal shooters tend to have more like level design and a lot of stuff that you might have to figure out versus just plowing the fire button and hoping you survive and dodging bullets and stuff like that. I mean, outside of like Castlevania and stuff like that, Life Force was Konami at its best with art and music and just spot on controls and fun game design. They were at the top of their game, at least in the 80s, with this type of stuff right here. And that's why Life Force is number 2. All right, number 1, and I'm looking at it right now. I haven't looked at it in a while. It's in not great shape, but it's another one of those king shit games. Like, of course, it's number 1, and that is Super Mario Bros. 2. I'm not going to go into the story about Doki Doki Panic and like this is not the real Super Mario Bros. 2 and all that other bullshit, but this is the one we got in 1988, and it's also a game that I didn't own. I had 1 and 3, somehow skipped 2, but it's another one of those games that a family member had and they let me borrow, and I was like, man, this is great. Like the subspace stuff with the doors and throwing vegetables and finding secret exits and all the other stuff. It was a fucking great time. Super Mario Bros. 2 is fucking phenomenal. Definitely one of the top games on the NES. Maybe top 20. I'm pretty sure I didn't put it in my top 10. Yeah, it didn't make it, but still, if you own an NES, you need to own Super Mario Bros. 2. If you are passionate about games that came out in 1988, that little portion of the audience there. Super Mario Bros. 2 is number 1. Don't argue with me. It's fact. Just fucking agree with me and we'll be okay. Okay, so those are my top 10 games from 1988. I really want to do this because I stole this idea from someone else on YouTube, which they probably stole it. But I wanted to keep going on chronologically, so next time, chronologically, next time it's gonna be 1989. Yeah.